Hi everyone. All right, I'm introducing you to Profile UI 1.0. That's a release of both Profile UI and Profile API that enables it. Profile UI is a React app built with Byte and Cloudscape. Uh, Please go to this issue inside Caddy Security 327. Within the issue, you will find the files. For the profile UI, you will have to serve it with your Caddy instance. Here is, if you scroll down, there will be profile UI and there is an assets file. That's a zip file. It will contain the following files. Let me show you. So it's a direct copy of my build directory. So in the build directory will have, robots, manifests, some logos, images, such as a banner, fonts. I switched to Interfont for this. Then you have assets, which is CSS and GS for this React app. So let's talk about a little bit about the config that you need to have. I described the config right here in this issue. Nevertheless, I think it is worth uh, going over it right here. So first of all, there's a Caddy. Here is a Caddy file that I have. Within the Caddy file, I define the local DB store. This is very important for the profile UI because the local identity store um, profile UI currently works only with local identity store, but everything in the future releases, everything will be migrated to work with local identity store. And that local identity store will also be distributed across multiple instances of Caddy, right? So that creates a distributed system. So everything would go in there, user identities as well as user sessions. So this way you can run multi-instance cluster with authentication. All right, so here I'm defining web admin user and the static JSmith user that we'll be using. Um, in here I'm encoding password, and here I'm providing password in plain text just for demonstration purposes. You really should be using bcrypt. The option here overwrite basically doesn't doesn't matter what you do. You can change passwords, but the override directive will always enforce this password on the startup. Then I have LinkedIn identity provider, and there are some configuration settings there, and my authentication portal contains a number of links. So one of the links is to who am I endpoint. Another link is to profile endpoint. So profile endpoint is being served from /auth/profile. And I used to have another endpoint called auth settings, which was kind of that profile UI, but like from 1990s. It worked. So let's remove this. We don't need that anymore. And there are some links that I have for an application that I'm running for demo purposes. So now we need to have, because we're hosting the profile UI is not yet fully embedded in the Caddy binary, and the reason for that, we're still testing together. So please bring your feedback to me via email, LinkedIn, however you want it. And so what I'm doing is I'm building that, and I'm adding that to the assets and publishing that on GitHub. In a future version, at some point where I declare it stable, I will package the profile UI assets directly into the build. So this way you don't have to download or configure anything. But meanwhile, you do need to have some configuration. So one of the configurations is that you have to have dedicated authorization policy for the portal. Why? Because profile UI is a web app, right? So unless user is authenticated, they really have no reason to look at that app. So what we do here is I'm saying allow admins and allow users and deny everyone else. And then there is another authorization policy, but it's mostly for the app. So here's a configuration for my authentication portal. I'm hosting it from auth.myfiasgateway.com. Uh, Whenever I use a development, so when I work on the UI, I reverse proxy to the Byte development server. And in case when you will be hosting that, you will need to create this configuration. So let me go over it. So what this configuration does, it is configured before the route that handles the authentication of the basically before authenticate plugin handles the portal. So we kind of like have to have it step before, and a step before we're matching the route. Anything that goes to auth/profile would have to be first to authorized by the portal policy that I spoke before. Then we strip the prefix here, this auth profile prefix. And this is all done for um, app hosting purposes. Whenever you have a React app, you will likely, if it's deeply nested, you will likely have to strip the prefix. Moreover, in the React apps, some path that you see in the browser, some URLs, they're not really URLs. They are created by JavaScript. So what needs to happen is that first we'll be serving so my build files that you see here. We create a file server that hosts them, and there is a directive path through. So for example, let's say you hit a path that is JavaScript generated as opposed to be rooted in the files on the file system. So in that case, if file server does not find it, it will throw an error unless you have this directive called pass through. And what it does, it says, okay, when I find some path that someone is going to, but it's not in the build, I will continue to the next directive, which is rewrite. So it doesn't matter what you hit on the server, you will be rewritten to index.html, and then your file server will serve that index.html. So long story short, anytime you have a React app, you will likely have to use this type of magic in order to serve it. Then we have a portal that we serve from /auth. And then in my case, since I'm hosting that, I don't have, I'm hosting the authentication portal one level above, so it's at /auth. I want to have a route that if someone goes to auth.myfiles.com, myfilesgateway.com, they will hit the default route and they will be rerouted to the auth endpoint on with 302 redirect. And that's it in terms of configuration. So let's see. Um, so like I said, the files you will amend it. You will amend config based on your own hosting pattern. Then version, important. At the top right corner, there will be version. So anytime I will be releasing new profile UI, I will be incrementing that version. So this way you know where you are in terms of being up to date. All right, so, and here are the files. Let's see how it works. I will start the portal. I already started, so this is the logging itself and the sandbox are still the same, the older design pattern, but the profile changed. And the goal for me is actually create a number of apps. One app will be for logging. Another app will be a sandbox app that's specifically responsible for whatever happens in the sandbox, where you authenticate with tokens and whatever else. And then third app, which I already created, this is Profile UI. That's for you adding keys and you managing, your tokens, whatever it is. That's third. And the fourth one is something called Manager. So you have Profile, Manager, Sandbox, and Login. So 4 apps in total, and all of them will have associated API that will open a bunch of different opportunities to grow the project. All right, so let's start. We'll click on local. Here is my user JSmith. I provide the password. So happens I configured both authenticator app and hardware token. And when you have that stuff, you can authenticate with either. So I will choose to authenticate with hardware token. I click I just pressed on the button to allow myself in, and here is my my config. So I have my identity. I am authenticated as OFP user, right? So, and I can click on my profile, and that brings me to the profile UI app. In here, I can change passwords and do a lot of cool things. And then if I click here on this button, I will go back to the portal. And if I drop down, I will have some screens like portal or debug or sign out. I can use any of those. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy this. Please open issues, contact me by email, LinkedIn, however you want. Love you all. Have a great day. Bye bye.